7th grade science, chapter 2, section 9, plants without flowers. Plants with vascular systems. Plants are grouped into two main categories based on their vascular system, xylem and phloem. Those with vascular systems make up the tracheophytes, and those without vascular systems make up the bryophytes. Tracheophytes are divided into two categories based on their seed-bearing characteristics: seed plants and non-seed plants. Seed plants. The seed plants include the angiosperms and gymnosperms. Angiosperms reproduce by seeds formed in flowers. We have discussed the characteristics and families of angiosperms earlier in this chapter. The gymnosperms reproduce by seeds, but unlike angiosperms, their seeds are not enclosed in an ovary. Gymnosperms earned their name, which means naked seed, because their seeds form within cones or cone-like structures. Gymnosperms include pines, firs, hemlocks, spruces, ginkgos, sago palms, redwoods, and sequoias. Because most gymnosperms are trees, we will study them in more detail with other trees in Chapter 12. Non-seed vascular plants. Seedless tracheophytes, including ferns, horsetails, and club mosses, do not need flowers or cones like angiosperms or gymnosperms because they reproduce using spores, not seeds. Spores are tiny, one-celled reproductive structures that will eventually produce new plants. One of the most unique seedless plants is the fern. Except for tree ferns, the fern's stem grows horizontally, either just below or along the ground. The above-ground stems that you see are the petioles of the fern leaves. Ferns have two forms. The form that you usually see lives for several years and produces spores that may develop into new plants of the second form, which are tiny and not often noticed. This second fern plant only lives for a short time before it dies. It produces egg and sperm cells that unite to form a new plant of the first form. An unusual characteristic of the horsetail is its chlorophyll containing stems that carry on photosynthesis instead of its tiny green leaves. In one type of horsetail, the outer cell layer contains silica, a glass-like substance that is very rough to the touch. Because of this coarse substance, horsetails were once used to scour pots and pans, earning the name scouring rushes. Another type of spore-forming plant, the club moss, bears spores in club-shaped cone-like structures. The club mosses, which have slender stems and scale-like leaves, have also been called ground pines because they grow along the ground and resemble miniature pine trees. Plants without vascular systems. The bryophytes, plants without vascular systems, include mosses and liverworts. Although these plants possess structures that look similar to roots, stems, and leaves, bryophytes do not have true roots, stems, and leaves because their structures lack vascular tissues. Mosses, which can survive in every climate of the world, often form a lush green coating on moist surfaces. Although most often seen on the ground, mosses will also grow on rocks and trees. Whenever you see a moss covering, you are actually looking at thousands of tiny moss plants, each with its own slender stem and tiny leaves. Each moss plant stays attached to the moist surface or soil by rhizoids, tiny hair-like threads that absorb water and nutrients. Liverworts have the same general body structure as mosses. Many of these plants, however, look like clusters of tiny leaves instead of having the velvety carpet appearance of mosses. Liverworts normally grow in moister places than mosses.